Hello, hello, welcome back. We are going to do the introduction paragraph today for the government essay. We are going to do the entire paragraph diagram this time because it's pretty short. If you remember when we talked about paragraph diagrams for the introduction paragraph, we talked about how really your introduction only needs to be about 3 sentences. So this isn't going to take all that long. Hopefully we can kind of breeze through it pretty quickly. But remember that you can pause your video at any time if you need to. You can rewatch things like that, if that becomes a need for you. Let's start by filling in our paragraph diagram. Fill in the top section up here. So I'm going to erase my title. I'm going to put my title as being branches of government. I'm going to go over here and erase the name section and put my name. Oops, wrong one. And then I'm going to go over here and you're going to put whatever corps you're in. And then I'm going to do my circle again like I did before. I'm going to circle my, oh boy, my informative. Okay, I circled my informative. And I think that's really it. We could X out the transitions if we wanted to. We don't really need them for introduction, but you don't have to. You can leave them there if you want. But we're going to start with reviewing real quick what we do for our introduction paragraph. So if you remember, our introduction paragraphs, we used the acronym HOT because our introductions were going to be HOT. So I'm going to make some notes down here in the speaker notes, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. So we have H, O / T, and then T. Remember, those were our acronyms. And we said that the H stood for the hook, right? It's how we bring the reader into our essay. We talked about how this can be a question, it can be an interesting fact, or it can be a short story. The OT stands for overview / transition. And this is what sets up our thesis statement, which is what we're going to talk about next. It's kind of that overview of, it's going to summarize what we are going to talk about. That's what our OT is. Then T is the most important piece. It's our thesis statement. Okay, and our thesis statement is kind of like the topic sentence for the whole essay. Okay, and here we talked about also how if it isn't in your thesis statement, it can't be in your essay. You have to talk about everything that you're going to talk about in your thesis statement. Now, you don't have to get super specific. Like, we're not going to list the functions of the executive branch or anything like that. But you need to talk about the executive branch, legislative branch, and checks and balances. So why don't we just start there? Sometimes it's easier just to start on our thesis. So I'm going to make this smaller again. Okay, and we're on thesis statement. So I'm going to kind of make it so I can see my notes on thesis statement here. Maybe. There we go. Thesis statement. All right. So our thesis statement needs to talk about executive branch, legislative branch, and checks and balances. Okay. So a good way to kind of start is to think about what the prompt said. So the prompt said that we were to talk about the functions of the executive and legislative branch and the checks and balances between the two. All right. So for our thesis, let's see. Let's go with, there are, let's do this differently. Let's go the executive and legislative branches have specific functions. they must perform as well as a system of checks and balances between the two. Okay, I have talked about the executive branch, the legislative branch, and checks and balances. And I've also talked about the functions, okay, because that's an important piece too. We had to let our reader know that we were talking about the functions of the executive branch, not just like who was a part of that branch. So we've talked about the functions of the executive and legislative branch, and then as well as the fact that there are checks and balances between the two branches of government. Check, check, done. Okay, we got our thesis done. Let's hop up and do our hook next. How are we going to bring our reader in? Again, there are lots and lots of options of ways that you can do this. Let's see, what could I put for my hook? I'm going to do a question. I think that's what I'm going to use for my hook. You can use any hook that you want. Again, you do not have to do the same things that I am, but if you want to, you can, but you can also kind of venture off on your own. So for my hook, I'm going to say, did you know that there are 3 branches of government? And 2 of them are called the executive and legislative branches. Oh, I got my question mark. Did you know that there are 3 branches of government and 2 of them are called the executive and legislative branches? All right, that's not too bad. I mean, it could be better, but it's not too bad. You could improve this, and maybe as you keep writing your essay, you think of something better and you go back and change it. That's what's really nice about these paragraph diagrams, is that you can change things as you go on. You don't necessarily have to follow exactly what you have written in. Okay, now I'm to my overview. So I need to think about what are some important things that my reader needs to know. I think in my overview, I'm going to include some facts that we haven't talked about yet. So I'm going to say, let's start by talking about who leads each branch. The executive branch, is led by the president, while the legislative branch is led by Congress. Okay, got an important piece of information there they need to know. I probably also should include something about checks and balances, about what checks and balances are. I could say, in the government, let's not do that. Let's say each branch of government has certain jobs they have to do to help the government run. Let's not do government. Let's do help the country run and keep the other branches in line. Okay, so each branch of government has certain jobs they have to do to help the country run and keep the other branches in line. I probably should talk about checks and balances. Let's see. The job checks and balances are how one branch keeps the other branches. Let's change that. Checks and balances are how the other branches keep each other from, no. Checks and balances are how the branches keep each other from getting too powerful. Okay, that's not too bad. All right, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read through my entire introduction and see if it sounds right. So I'm going to kind of make this bigger or smaller. Yeah, bigger. Smaller. No! Okay, here we go. Did you know that there are 3 branches of government and 2 of them are called the executive and legislative branches? The executive branch is led by the president, while the legislative branch is led by Congress. Each branch has certain jobs they have to do to help the country run and keep the other branches in line. Checks and balances are how the branches keep each other from getting too powerful. The executive and legislative branches have certain functions they must perform, as well as a system of checks and balances between the 2. It's not too bad. I'm pretty proud of that. Again, you can change this if you need to. This is just an example of how you might choose to do it. Here, our introduction has 5 sentences. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's probably the absolute most you'd want in an introduction. You don't want any more than about 5 sentences, because you don't want your introduction to be too long that you kind of turn off your reader and keep them from wanting to keep reading. But this is what we're going to go with. That's not too bad. Again, you can change it if you want to. Tomorrow, or make sure that you get this filled in, okay? That's kind of like your homework for tonight, is to make sure you have this filled in. Tomorrow, we're going to finish with our conclusion paragraph. So I'll see you there.